I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone for being here and to give you a little bit of background on why my favorite duet partner is a Japanese flutist and how I even got to meet her. I'm very fortunate to work with one of the world's greatest flutists, and he's the most published composer of music for the flute in the world. He goes to Japan and he travels all over the world, actually, and in Japan he's kind of a rock star. And the Japanese flutists and actually people from all over the world come to study with him, and I was fortunate enough to meet Yukiko 2 years ago at his class that we have in West Park, New York, and we hit it off. I asked her to come the next year and stay at my house so we could get to know each other better. And when she came for his class this weekend, I said, oh, please come play this concert with me. So she was very gracious in saying yes. So thank you, Yukiko. We did all of our planning for the concert via Facebook message. I realized when she got here how much in tune with each other we are, because I said, would you like to play a Telemon? And she said, oh yes. And I said, well, you choose. Honored guest from Japan chooses. And so she said, Telemon E. And I thought, oh, how wonderful. I love the Telemon E. Well, 2 days before she arrived, I went through my library and I realized Telemon wrote an awful lot of things in E. But we picked the same one. And it worked out just fine. So thank you for being here, and thank everyone for coming out. I would like to introduce Miriam's grandmother to you. If you're not acquainted with Benna, come on up here. Benna is an incredible volunteer in this area. She and Ed, her husband, who's now coming up, but will wave, have done so much in the area to organize dances and get people dancing. And I have to say, Benna really actually changed my life, because she was one of the organizers of the Arlington Reformed Church dance that happens actually tonight, and that was my first dance and the first time I ever learned to swing, even though I loved the music for years. And if I hadn't gone to that dance, a whole bunch of things in my life would have never happened. I would have never met Joe, I wouldn't be married to him, so I owe you a debt of gratitude for all the things that you've done in the community, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about Miriam.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Julie, for organizing this, and I'll say it again, even though Julie said it, thank you all for coming. Really, really nice, and thank you. It was beautiful music you just played, really beautiful. I hadn't heard you play before. I loved it. I loved it. So, I think Joe is videotaping this, so, hi Miriam. I don't know which camera's on. Hi Miriam, this is for you. So Miriam is my granddaughter. She was my third grandchild. She's the third of 5 that my daughter and son-in-law had. And when she was 12 years old, she had pain in her leg just above her ankle, and it was undiagnosed for about 4 months. She went to a doctor, but it wasn't diagnosed. And then they did an MRI and could see that it was something very, very serious. They could see a tumor that was too big to fit in the MRI picture, which is pretty big. So she went immediately to Sloan Kettering. That was in September 2014, a year and a half ago, and she's been in treatment since then. And when that happened, my daughter called up and she said, Mom, please come. And all the time my daughter was married, she never asked me to come, ever. I mean, she was happy to have us visit, but she never asked for help. So we pretty much dropped everything and spent the next 9 months living in Brooklyn, coming home on weekends. And my daughter and Miriam spent the next 9 months living at Sloan Kettering and occasionally coming home for a day or two on weekends. So it was very, I think I'm going where I don't want to go. It was very traumatic.
Start at the very beginning.
Okay, I'll go back there in a minute. It was very traumatic for the whole family. 2 little boys, 8 and 10. Their mother's suddenly gone from their lives. And they missed her terribly. It was hard. It was very hard. If any of you have been through anything like it, you know, I don't have to tell you, it's very, very hard for the whole family. Okay, so now let me tell you about Miriam. So Miriam has always been a strong-willed girl. She's got a lot of spunk. She wants to be in charge of everything. If she could be in charge of the family, she'd like that a lot. She'd like to be a movie director. She'd like to be the head of a big business. Anything as long as she's in charge. And her main interest now is fashion design. So she spends a lot of time drawing pictures of clothing. And her dream is to be able to start a business, design her own line of clothing, and start a business selling it. So this is very ambitious for a 13-year-old. And none of us really know how to help her. If any of you happen to have contacts in that type of field, or know anybody who does and could tell us about it, that would be great. So Miriam also, she's very bright. She's interested in lots of different things, wild cats, Italy, she'd love to go to Italy. She's interested in historical figures, Cleopatra, King Tut, the kings and queens of England, which Ed has, my wonderful husband Ed, has a big book with the pictures of the kings and queens of England through history and a little information about each, and Miriam loves to have him go through that book with her. Okay, so her treatment to date has really been more or less on course. So she had 9 months of chemo, then she needed some time to recover from the chemo, and then they did, well, right at the beginning, they thought they were going to have to amputate her leg because the tumor was so big, but she responded very well to the first round of chemo, and they said, all right, we'll try to save her leg. So then she had the rest of the 9 months of chemo, and then they had to take out a piece of bone 4.5 inches long, just above her ankle. So she really, couldn't put any weight on that. There was no connection between her leg and her ankle. So in late August, they put her in a brace, and this was planned. None of us were prepared for what the brace would look like, but it involved having metal rods screwed into her bone on both sides of her leg, all up and down her calf, and wires sticking out through her skin, and then an external structure around that. And the purpose was to make the bone grow. So Miriam didn't like it at all. It was painful, but it did work. Her bone is growing, and the current status is that the bone needs to keep growing a little more, and then they'll do another surgery. This will be the 6th. Another surgery to remove the rods and join up her ankle and her lower leg. And then she'll start physical therapy. And we don't know how long it will take, but my guess is probably 1.5 years, at least. But we don't really know for sure. My daughter has had to stop working immediately when Miriam was diagnosed. And she hasn't been able to work, and she won't be probably for another 1.5 years or more. So for the future, we really hope, and we're hopeful, and we believe she's going to stay cancer-free. She's going to have good use of her leg, and she's going to have a good life. So Miriam, that's our hope for you, and we're all rooting for you. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. I know a lot of us have talked to Benna. Oh, we have a beautiful picture.
A few pictures of Miriam. This is Miriam 6.5 years ago at Ed's and my wedding. She was the flower girl. She was afraid she was too old, but I assured her she wasn't, and it was a very big thing for her. And there's 2 other pictures out in the social hall of her. One part of the whole family before she was diagnosed, and one after chemo ended and her hair started to grow back in.
So please, yes, go look at the pictures so you can know who you have helped today by being here. And I just want to say that I'm amazed so many people would come out and also give online for a little girl that they don't even know. This is an incredible statement to me of how kind people really are. You know, if you watch the news, which I don't because I think it's a bad idea, you see the bad out there in the world, but there really is so much good and so much hope, and all of you willing to give just magnifies that for me and makes me realize there is so much hope in the world. So I thank you for what you've given today and for the support that you've given to Benna and Ed, because it's not been an easy time for them. I know, looking around the room, I know so many people here, we have just about every kind of belief system represented, so I'm not going to say a prayer per se, but I'd like a little moment of silence, and in that time, I ask you to say a prayer or send a positive thought or whatever you do, but send some love to Miriam. And if we'll just start that, I'll just be quiet for a few minutes. Amen. And I also ask right now, we're not having an intermission, but we would love it if you had something to say or wave or something to Miriam, and we're actually recording the concert today. My husband Joe is up in the balcony, and he's got the camera pointed right down this way. So what I'm going to ask you to do is stand up. What did you want? No, it's okay. We can wave up. Yeah. So we're going to ask you to stand up and turn around, and either on the count of 3, we love you, Miriam, or go, Miriam, or whatever you feel like. Blow some kisses, wave, whatever. Everybody stand up. You can see Joe there. We're going to get this to Miriam. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. We're going to send this to her, and we're also going to have it online.